So during UFC 310, we received some news. Now, I knew this news was coming, but I'll be honest, I wasn't really looking forward to it, and that is Sean Strickland versus DDP2. Now, of course, look, the first fight was very close, so it does make sense we're getting a rematch, but I do have one big problem with this. Well, I guess I have a couple of problems. One of which being, if Sean Strickland loses a decision again, oh my God, we're not going to hear the end of it. He's going to bitch about it for minimum, I would say, a year moving forward. The other problem is, this isn't really Strickland's fault, but after Khamzat Chimaev's performance against Robert Whittaker, I mean, come on, that's the fight to make. That is the fight that we all want to see, but now we're going to have to potentially wait a very long time for Khamzat to get a title shot. But I mean, look, if I did have to pick out maybe some silver lining in all of this, maybe Khamzat won't want to wait and they'll feed him somebody like Israel Adesanya. I mean, I think that's an amazing fight. I think that's great jerk-off material. I think that for all parties involved, that would be extremely beneficial other than Adesanya's. But we have the rematch between Strickland and DDP. And look, again, I can't complain too much. That fight was razor close, but I think, honestly, Sean Strickland has fundamental issues with his style that will just always put him at such a massive disadvantage against somebody like DDP. No matter what he does, no matter what he tries to change, the way he fights is not congruent with a matchup against somebody like this. I mean, with that being said, though, Sean Strickland genuinely is so fucking good. I mean, the fact that he was able to stand in front of Dricus all 5 rounds and never get rocked, never get hurt, to have his defense hold up as well as it did is absolutely absurd because Israel Adesanya couldn't do that. There were multiple times in that fight where Adesanya really got cracked. Of course, at one point got really rocked, which led to him getting finished. But Strickland's defense is just so much better than Adesanya's. The way he sees punches coming, the way he leans back and makes you hit him in the shoulders. It's very unorthodox, and again, you cannot take that away from Sean Strickland. But you look through his record, and he has been plagued with losing close split decisions. You remember the Paulo Costa fight? In my opinion, that was kind of the performance that people started turning on Sean Strickland. That was when people realized, okay, Strickland is kind of boring. Sean Strickland will look at you dead in the eyes and he'll tell you, I am going to take your fucking soul in that octagon. And then he goes out there and, as pointed out by many, will fight like iCarly does. But honestly, that's beside the point here. The real issue is when you look at the Paulo Costa fight remember, one of the judges gave Paulo Costa that fight. All right. And when that happened, of course, everybody was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. What? And then, we all collectively just moved on and forgot about it. But, what if I told you, no, it actually did make sense? Now, I'm not saying it was correct. I'm not saying Paulo Costa should have won the fight. But when you read the judging criteria, which I get it, I understand, that's a very big ask. Daniel Cormier, who makes $500,000 from the UFC, has never even thought about actually looking at the criteria before. So I get it, it's a big ask. But if you just Google it, you'll see, of course, the number one criteria is effective striking / grappling. And effective striking is defined as more or less impact. Who is landing with more significant impact? And you look at Sean Strickland's style, and, well, he fights pretty much exactly the opposite of what the criteria is looking for. Every single time Sean fights a big power puncher, it ends in a split decision. And that is because no matter how good Sean's defense is, no matter how many jabs he's landing, all it takes is a couple of shots with big impact from his opponent to potentially sway the judges the other way. So, I mean, that is already a massive crutch for him against Dricus Du Plessis, no matter what, okay? He's always going to be at this disadvantage. But with all this being said, does Strickland really not stand a chance here? I mean, look, I do think there are things Strickland can do to fare a lot better in this fight. But on the inverse, I also think there are things DDP can do as well. But starting off with Strickland, I think that one strike that he landed very, very well early on in the fight that he kind of abandoned moving forward was the teep. He landed probably 6 teeps round 1 really cleanly, and Dricus honestly wasn't defending them super well. Now, and the reason why the teeps opened up so well in this matchup, of course, was because DDP knew that Strickland's offense and defense opens up so well when he's the one walking you down, pressuring you. So DDP knew he couldn't be on the back foot. He needed to force Strickland backwards. But the constant forward movement just made him run into the teeps. And they absolutely play a factor in your cardio as the fight moves forward. I mean, eating teeps to the body absolutely sucks. But again, Strickland landed about 6 round 1. Let me refer to my notes real quick. He landed 1 round 2. He landed 1 early round 3. And there were no other ones round 4 or 5. He just stopped throwing it. His corner was asking for them. But, for whatever reason, in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the battle, they just weren't there. And, I mean, look, if there was one tool that could potentially prevent DDP from walking you down, it would have been an accumulation of teeps. If he was landing 6 of them per round, like he did round 1, by round 4 or 5, he'd be really starting to feel it. And I think that's where Strickland potentially could find more success. Because, right, a lot of people said in the build-up to the original Sean Strickland DDP fight, they went, well, Strickland's Philly shell just won't work on the back foot. I wouldn't say that's true. I don't think he exclusively uses the Philly shell. I think he does a good job leaning back from punches, whether or not he's walking forward or he's walking backwards. But the one strike he is very vulnerable to, if he's not on the front foot, are the head kicks. And that's because the reason why it's so hard to land head kicks on Strickland is because he's in your face, because he's making you walk backwards. I mean, good luck setting up a good head kick. I mean, Adesanya was failing miserably at this because he was constantly having to circle away from Strickland. But DDP was finding a lot of success with the high kicks because he was putting Strickland on the back foot. So step 1 to potentially preventing DDP from just recklessly going after you is more teeps throughout the entire fight. That's got to be step 1. And of course, the other big thing that he didn't do the first time they fought was he wasn't making DDP pay for these huge misses. Again, Strickland's defense was amazing, but Dricus was throwing way out of position. He was missing so badly. And this is where you have to make him pay for those huge misses. But Strickland never did it. Every single time DDP would swing and miss badly, he would just move back to range where he would attempt to jab. And because of that, DDP just never stopped throwing, and he was getting closer and closer until eventually he did start landing as the fight went on. If from the get-go, every single time DDP missed, Strickland was making him pay with a right hand, that would have really, really hampered his ability just to throw wildly. The problem is, though, this just isn't Strickland's game. His game is to stand in front of you, just make you miss and land jabs and frustrate you. That's it. The problem is, though, if you have a guy that's not going to go away, who's just going to keep going at you, it just doesn't work the same way, and I think that is another kind of fundamental issue Strickland has in this matchup. Now, on DDP's side, in terms of where he can do better, he was headhunting a lot against Strickland, which, of course, is the reason why towards the end of the fight he started really landing on him. But there were moments where he would blitz in, Strickland would get ready to roll and move with punches, but DDP would just rip to the body instead. And, with the amount of power DDP has, this could be very detrimental. But again, he didn't target it a lot. It was only a couple times he really ripped to the body. I think mixing that in a lot more is just going to make it that much more astronomically hard for Strickland to read the punches coming. And of course, the other big area for DDP was he had some amazing takedowns against Strickland, really good blast double legs. When he would get to the single legs too, Strickland just had such little time to defend before he was getting taken down. I mean, DDP's physicality here was on pure display. The issue is for him there was that Strickland legitimately has really good grappling defense, and his get-ups from the bottom were really good. But every single mat return DDP tried, he hit. Every single one. At one point, even fucking suplexed Strickland. But for the most part, when Strickland would get up the second time, DDP would just let him go. He would just let him go and go back to space. Most likely because he didn't feel the danger coming his way from Strickland on the feet, so he didn't mind going back to range. But against Adesanya, DDP did not do this. He never let Adesanya go. He made Adesanya have to fully fight his hands, disconnect them before he was willing to give it up. And because DDP was having these prolonged moments of holding Adesanya up against the fence, he was able to land some good short shots from positions like these, and I think he can replicate it easily against Strickland. I mean, DDP's ground and pound, it's one of the best aspects of his game. He has so much power, and even these short shots are going to do damage. And I think instead of letting Strickland go, just hold him from this position and try to land. So, of course, there probably are some more intricate details we'll save for the definitive breakdown, but I mean, overall, again, I do think there are certain things Strickland can do to help him in a rematch, but again, I think for the most part, minus a few things here or there, Strickland fought his game against DDP, and he did it honestly very well, and it still didn't go his way. And I think that DDP does have a lot of areas he can improve and do better on. And of course, I think DDP probably should be a very heavy favorite for the rematch.